Welcome to Alpine Daily for a Friday. I want to share with you a verse that I've spent a lot of time with in the last month. I read it a month ago and it was very confusing to me and I struggled with it, and so I've been praying about it, and I want to share with you some insights that I've gleaned from it. And it's 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3, and we get from this passage our title today, I Don't Even Judge Myself. So 1 Corinthians 4:3 was written by the Apostle Paul, and I've printed here the entire paragraph so you can read it and get the context, but I want to focus on verse 3. He says, I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. Now, let me tell you what was going on. Paul wrote this letter to this church in Corinth, and this church in Corinth had all these leaders who called themselves apostles, and they doubted Paul. They doubted whether or not Paul was really a true apostle, if he really had the message of salvation, and they were creating all sorts of problems for Paul. And he finally says, look, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care how you judge me. I don't care really how any human judges me. I don't even judge myself. Instead, he says, it is God who is my judge. He says, I look at my own life, and I'm innocent, but God is the one who matters. He is the one who will judge me. But what's really caused some hangups for me is this phrase, I do not even judge myself. Because Paul's the same guy that tells us that we need to look at our thought life, we need to look at our beliefs and our actions and see if they are the kinds of thoughts and actions and beliefs that honor Jesus. In fact, one of the ways to know if you're a Christian is test your faith, test your thoughts. Do they add up to the kinds of things that should be in a Christian? And yet here he says, I don't even judge myself. And as I've thought about this verse and I've prayed about it and I've looked at some other passages, I realized I think one of the ways that this verse can help us, it can help us when it comes to spiritual depression. Sometimes, I'm sure like all of you, well, maybe like most of you at least, I kind of fall into a spiritual depression, a time where I just feel like sin has grown in my life and it's maybe spiraled out of control, or I just don't feel connected to Jesus. I don't feel connected to God. I don't feel connected to my prayer life. And whenever I begin to feel spiritually depressed, I start to focus more and more on myself. I start to think about my thoughts and my actions and how rotten I am. And I don't feel closer to God. I don't really feel like I want to read the Bible. I feel more disconnected from God. And I think that this verse is a reminder that if you feel spiritually depressed, don't focus on yourself, but focus on Jesus. That when he says, I don't judge myself, it's because over and over again in the Bible, what we're told is not to just dwell on the fact that we are sinful, awful, messed up people, but we're to dwell on the fact that Jesus is great and glorious and majestic, and that he is powerful to forgive us and save us, and that we should fill our minds thinking and meditating on God and his love and his mercy for us. Now, clearly, we still need to look at our own lives and look at our own actions. We saw that Jesus said in Matthew 7 that before you go and correct someone, you need to look at your own life and see what areas you need to confess to God. And certainly we need to confess to God the obvious sins in our life. But there comes a point where we focus too much on ourselves. And I want to encourage you, especially if you're dealing with spiritual depression, maybe you're focusing too much on yourself, and you need to get your eyes off yourself. You need to stop judging yourself, and you need to start looking more and more to Jesus. And so I would encourage you today, look at our prayer focus, confess obvious sin in your life, but then spend some time taking your focus off you in your prayer life and putting it on Jesus and following the principle of the Apostle Paul to limit your introspection.